Hello everyone and welcome along to TCR Europe, the first race of our two races here for the second round of the championship at Paul Ricard. And it is beautifully sunny here. Welcome to the summer. It really is a fantastic weekend to go racing after our two races in Slovakia just a couple of weekends ago. Look at that, track temperature 43 degrees. And our new Hankook tyres for 2021 are going to be struggling with that. The humidity is pretty high as well. Drivers sweating before they even got in their cars just a few moments ago down in our paddock. And here is how the grid looks with just one car missing out of our entry list from our first race, Slovakia. No Daniel Nage, struggling to get from Hungary, Zengo, to our track here in France. But the rest are exactly as we saw in Slovakia, with plenty of French representation, including the Claret brothers in their Peugeots. The Audis, of course, of Dusan Borkovic, Tom Coronel, and Nicolas Bert. And we've also got Gilles Colombani and Sylvain Poussier, who are battling for the diamond category as well in their older style Cupras. And it's been Peugeot that have been really very strong, both in free practice one on the newer tyre, but also in qualifying. Jimmy Claret a little bit frustrated not to get the pole position, but very happy for his brother Teddy, who did pick up the pole position. And it was very, very close between all of our top 10 drivers. Not so much actually in qualifying, but more in the practice session. The Hyundai Elantra took victory last time out, its first sprint victory in Slovakia in race 2 in the hands of Mehdi Benani, and he lines up second on the grid going into the first turn. He will be on the outside, Benani, with 3 other teammates, including Felice Jelmini, the Italian, in just his second start in TCR Europe after a strong season in TCR Italy last year. And it will all be about management. Felice got a little bit hot under the collar in Slovakia, and he'll need to not only manage his team and car, but also perhaps a little bit his head. A really strong qualifying from Hyundai and Sebastian Loeb Racing. Sami Taufluik lines up behind his mentor and teammate, representing and flying the flag for Morocco, an all Morocco outside row for row 2. Niels Langeveld in the last of our Sebastian Loeb Racing cars, the Dutchman, lining up alongside his teammate on the 5th position on the grid. This is how the qualifying results were this morning. Really good qualifying from Jack Young. A little bit of a weight break for Honda generally, and Jack the best of the Brutal Fish and the best of the Hyundais as well. And there is confirmation of just how hot it is out on circuit. Even though we're approaching 5 o'clock local time, it's nearly 26 degrees. There is Jimmy Claret. As I say, he will really be a little bit disappointed with 7th on the grid, because that Peugeot has potential for a lot more. Seems to be very, very strong, booting itself out of the slower corners, and be questions whether in the slipstream it can have a good top speed, because that's very, very crucial. Michael Ajkana, our championship leader, only could manage 8th spot in qualifying, but he does still lead our championship ahead of Mehdi Benani by a healthy 16-point margin. Last-minute changes for the Hyundai of Franco Girolami. I think they were lowering the ride height of his Honda to try and get a little bit more front end to protect those front tyres, which will be doing so much work around the medium and slow speed corners here at Paul Ricard. Unlike the GT3 category that we are supporting here alongside SRO, we do have the chicane on the Mistral straight, 3rd gear entry, dropping down into 2nd for the slower right-hand part, and then accelerating back up to terminal velocity before you get to senior. It would be a rather long and perhaps slightly boring straight if you were in a TCR car all the way along it, although I am told they're doing about 250 Ks before they approach the chicane, which is halfway along the Mistral. The GT3 category gets to about 280 by terminal velocity at the end of that long straight. Green flag at the front of the field, and the cars will head around to gently, I think, warm their front tyres and try and get a bit of temperature into their rear tyres. Let's remind you that This is brand new territory for all of our drivers. They haven't really experienced these kind of hot temperatures in these kinds, on these tyres, because these tyres are brand new. The grid then, Teddy Claret and Mehdi Banani on the front row of the grid. That Peugeot should get off the line well if they get a good start. Yalmini and Taufluk on row 2, Langeveld and then first the Hondas on row 3. Jimmy Claret on row 4 with Mikael Ashkener, then Girolami and PSS. Victor Davidovsky, who gets pole position for tomorrow's race. Kayas missed out on the top 10 flip. And then we start seeing the Audis. Coronel, the best of the Audis, in 13th position. His teammate Nicolas Barr only 15th spot. Hommler disappointed with 16th, there is no doubt. Dusan Borkovic had a gearbox issue, second gearbox that's gone into his Audi RS3 after a change between FP1 and FP2. He then has another one for the first of our races and therefore was unable to really set a representative time going into the second part of our Q1. Let's not forget, we split our qualifying into 2 stages. The whole field go out with Q1 and then we allow the top 12 to go out for Q2. The grid set by the results of Q2, but then we flip the top 10 for our second race, which will happen at lunchtime tomorrow, Sunday. So Audi with a bit of a weight penalty after their success in Slovakia. That is why Coronel sits 13th, Bart 15th, Borkovic even further back, and Gavrilov actually got a 3-place grid penalty for going into the pits and then basically deciding he didn't want to go into the pits just before pit lane in. So crossing the white line and getting himself a penalty and a grid drop. He drops to the tail end, just ahead of Gilles Colombani in the older style Cupra. Quite a pace from Teddy Claret on this warming up lap. The key thing really is those rear tyres. Remember, they don't do anything. They are there simply to support the rear end from falling down. You can see there suddenly flicking the car from left to right. Teddy Claret trying to get at least a little bit of surface temperature, because there's not even that larger brake discs in those rear tyres to radiate heat from them into the rim and then into the tyres. So the only real way of doing it is properly getting the car sideways. And remember back in the old Michelin days when we had really hard tyres, it was almost drifting that first lap to try and get any temperature at all. The front tyres, I would have thought on a day like today, will be needing to be protected. The temperature in the brakes will have got up pretty well, and the temperature in the air and the track will have radiated straight into those fronts pretty easily. So issues for Dusan Borkovic in qualifying, and therefore he starts the tail end of the field. Watch out for him as he makes his way forward. Last minute changes for Girolami at PSS Honda, and it was a bit of a rush even to get that car onto the grid, but they did manage it, and now all the cars are formed up at the tail of the field. 21 competitors then for weekend 2, round 3 of TCR Europe here from Paul Ricard. It's time to get racing underway. The green flag flies in the back of the field. Wait for the lights. And a really quick getaway and a great start from Teddy Claret. Not a good start from Mehdi Banani, and he is going to be swamped by his teammates. He's got Sami Taufluk on the outside, and he's got Yelmini on the inside. Teddy Claret now trying to defend from Yelmini, and Yelmini's very aggressive into the braking zone at turn 1. It goes left and then right, so Claret will have the inside line for the right part and drifts a little bit wide. 2 of the Hyundai Elantras getting into each other further back. One of those, I'm sure, is Niels Langeveld, and one of them is not moving anymore. Langeveld continues, but who is the car at the very tail of the field? I can tell you, Coronel got a very, very bad start. He is in 20th position at the very back, but damage for one of our Elantras, and I fear that might be, oh, it's Sami Taufluk. It's not Mehdi Banani, I thought it was. 3 wide as the Hondas get squeezed together. Brutal Fish versus PSS. And that was a right mess of things. Oh, and that's, I would say, a slight deliberate cutting of the corner. I'm quite sure which of the PSS cars, or Brutal Fish cars that was. But as per usual, a frenetic first lap in TCR Europe. Claret into the chicane for the first time. Dive bombs further back. Jack Young, best of the Hondas in qualifying, but doesn't look like he's made a particularly strong start. And he's got Davidovski all over the back of him. Franco Girolami must have been the other car of that group that we saw going 3 wide. And now into this wonderful scene curve, almost flat out for these cars, scrabbling for grip, and especially with cold rear tyres, a real voyage into the unknown on these early laps as to how much grip you have at the rear end of your car. Great work from Teddy Claret, and even greater work from Jimmy, who is up to 3rd position now and looking to make it a Peugeot 1-2, a Claret Sport 1-2. Claret Sport based in Paris, would you believe? In an old speedy garage, or even a functioning speedy garage. So not the most conventional place to run a race team out of, but partnership with Speedy, and into 2nd position straight away goes Jimmy Claret, but has to run a little bit wide, and that's surely going to allow Yelmany back through. Ashkiner now on the tail of Claret, with the lights flashing as well. Ashkiner, our championship leader, by some 16 points coming into this weekend. We have no Daniel Naj, who is 3rd in the championship, sadly. Zango unable to get here to Paul Ricard. I'm sure we'll see them again at Spa-Francorchamps, or even Zandvoort, which is our next round. And Coronel has got himself back up at 12th position. So that fracas we saw halfway round the lap has promoted Coronel from 20th, where he was at the first corner, back up to 12th. And he has got, just ahead of him there, Sylvain Poussier. And actually, Matto Homola, who is making good progress, Homola. Trying to now find a way past Franco Girolami. So that's Honda, Hyundai and Audi. Coronel is still the best of the Audis. Not too much progress made by Dusan Borkovic at the tail of the field. Let's have a look at the slipstream effect. Teammates on each other. Callejas being passed pretty easily into the chicane by Jack Young. And that is a position swap for 7th position. So Jack Young back up into the best of the Hondas. Ahead of Callejas, then Davidovski, Girolami, and then that battle we saw with Homola, Coronel and Leonov. Benani into the slipstream of Ashkiner from 5th position. Oh, and holding a tighter line, being able to hold a tighter line, getting the rotation out of the Honda, and that was beautifully done, but he's not going to have the inside line for this next left-hand turn, and that means Ashkiner can hold on for the moment. Watching this is Nils Langeveld as Benani assaults the bollard, and Langeveld's going to see if he can make it 2 wide, 2 Elantras side by side. We've already had a little bit of contact, I believe, between Langeveld and his teammate Taufluik. Now through the final turn, Mehdi Benani finds a little bit of space and gets at least alongside Michael Ashkiner, who's forced over the floppies on the outside, and now they run side by side down towards turn 1. How are the relative top speeds between these 2 cars? Looks pretty good for Nils Langeveld, who's got a nice slipstream from Ashkiner and has the inside line into the braking zone, but decides against trying to go side by side with his teammate, and Benani is trying to still make it 2 wide through turn 2. Oh, look at that. Better run of things by Langeveld, and he slots in. So Langeveld is going to hold on to that 5th position. To the frustration, no doubt, of Mehdi Benani, our champion from 2020. Isidro Callejas is off the track. Was that damage? Is that damage? Or is that simply a issue with his Honda? Coronel now on the tail of Girolami. In the slipstream as well. Haven't really had a chance to see how good that Audi is. It's carrying a lot of weight. And now Nils Langeveld down the inside of Ashkiner. That will be for 4th position, and easily done. So the Elantra is running well on the long straights, but now provides the slipstream to Ashkiner. And they're big cars, they're big, wide cars, these new Elantras. And surely Ashkiner can benefit somehow from a slipstream, but actually Ashkiner's having to defend. All this boding very, very well for the Elantra's debut in the World Series that comes up in next weekend at the Nordschleife. And again, that Seat can't hold the same line that Mehdi Banani wants to hold and able to hold. As there a little bit of damage to that front left corner. It does look like Ajkana has... Now, I think that was a floppy that did that. I don't think that was contact with another car. We saw him make contact with a floppy at the chicane. It doesn't look very good for the left front. I don't know if that's the left front tyre or simply just the bumper. But either way, Banani has now managed to go round the outside of Ajkana, and Ajkana has lost 2 positions. And here comes Jack Young as well in the Honda. Honda really struggled in Slovakia on the first 2 races in the colder temperatures. Oh, and there's smoke from Niels Langeveld's left front tyre. Now, is that just body rub? Is there a slightly loose bumper? That would have been the area in which he touched Sami Taufluik at this point 2-3 laps ago. And I think it might just be at high speeds the bumper has come loose and is pressing on the front tyre. But what you don't want to do is have that bumper cut a groove in the Hankook tyre and make it fail. This is a really good run of things for Langeveld in 4th position. Banani 5th, Ajkana 6th, and Jack Young in 7th spot. We've got Claire leading, Jelmini in 2nd, so the best of the Hyundai Elantras in 2nd spot. And then Jimmy Claire unable in his Peugeot to get onto the tail of Jelmini right now. But Jelmini, known in the first 2 races of our championship for pushing maybe a little bit too hard his front tyres. A little bit further back, there is Jakim Gaius. 14th spot for Jakim. And he's just lost a position, I think, to Leonov. Or Leonov, actually. Yes, that's right. So maybe that was a mistake we're seeing there from Gaius. Ahead, the 2 Hyundais now. Langeveld, I think, was the strongest of the 4 drivers in Slovakia, but just didn't have the ultimate kind of luck when it came to the races. And again, look at Mehdi Banani's tighter line here. I'm surprised. I'll be interested to see whether the Hankooks are happy about that. That left front Hankook may well start screaming by the end of the race, because he's consistently held the tighter line, which gives him the overlap, which gives him at least a little bit of side-by-side. But he's not actually been able to complete the move. Now, there is something hanging down underneath Langeveld's car. That could well be the wheel arch. Bit of a plastic wheel arch which has been dislodged, and that would be then what's been rubbing against his tyre. And that's where we're seeing the smoke at high speeds, and eventually that will just wear out, the plastic will disappear. But in terms of aerodynamics, not how the engineers intended, for sure, having a bit of plastic flapping around underneath the car. So Banani still trying to find a way past his teammate. Certainly a lot more tricky when you're battling a driver the caliber of Langeveld, who's also got world experience, like Mehdi Banani. Many years in the World Championship, when he was a World Championship, before turning into a Cup. And Langeveld racing in the Cup, I think, last year, as well as many a season in the European Series as well. How much can Mehdi attack when he's got Ajkana and Jack Young really all over his tail? If you want to know where Dusan Borkovic is right now, seriously no progress, I'm afraid, from Borkovic. Still down in 18th spot, battling with Poussier and Colombani, which is really not where he deserves to be, and neither does Nicolas Bart, who is down there too, behind Gavrilov. The only Audi that's made any progress whatsoever is Tom Coronel, who's now in 10th position. Mehdi Banani on the inside line as we come down the second part of the Mistral. He's going to have the inside line for the braking zone and seeing the nose dips. And this time, for the first time, he's actually able to hold the outer line through this next corner. Although, I have to say, he sits still very much in the middle of the road. Not the conventional line that we're seeing from some of our other drivers that go in a little bit hotter and run a little bit wider through there. Mehdi's holding the tighter line, which means he covers less distance but does put a little bit more stress through the tyres. We are halfway, or or just over halfway through this encounter. We've lost Sami Taufluig, who retired on the first lap with contact with his teammate Nis Langeveld, and Isidro Callejas has pulled off the side of the road at turn 1 2 laps ago. Here is the battle for second position. Felice Jelmini, his first season in TCR Europe, steps up from TCR Italy with long-time campaigner Jimmy Claret in a Peugeot he knows incredibly well. Hasn't had much development, that Peugeot, but such is the regulations in TCR. Even if the car's a couple of years old, it still can be competitive thanks to the balance of performance that's put together by WSC that govern all the different TCR series across the world, whether it be a national championship, TCR Italy, TCR Spain, TCR UK, TCR Germany, there are so many of them, or a more international-based championship like the Worlds or the European series that we are seeing here today at Paul Ricard. Next up will be Zandvoort in a couple of weekends' time, again supporting the SRO Championships, and then we move on to support race for the Spa 24 Hours at Spa-Francorchamps, the end of July. We're racing Friday, Saturday there, of course, because the 24-hour race takes up the rest of the weekend. And then we go to the Nürburgring, also with SRO. Finish our championship in Barcelona, but between those two races, we will go to the Cathedral of Speed in Monza. And we always have mega touring car racing. It's kind of, for me, the spiritual home of TCR. Their very first race was at Monza some 6 years ago now. Could be even longer. Jack Young has now got himself past Mikael Ajkana. So that's the 6th position. That Honda really is working well, and this is definitely the best performance that we've seen from Jack Young for a good while. Brutal Fish have got that car working well. They've lost Isidro Callejas, who was so strong in Slovakia. And now their hopes are pinned on Jack. And he is delivering. Pretty impressive to be in front of Ajkana. A busy schedule for the Spaniard this year, doing TCR Europe. He's also doing the Electric TCR Championship, and he's racing in the World Cup as well. And between the races, of course, plenty of testing to do too. So he is going to be a very, very busy boy. It does mean that we might lose him from a couple of TCR Europe races, but thanks to the regulations, he is able to drop a weekend. And therefore, if he does not turn up to one weekend, that means he can still compete for overall honours. It also means if you have a bad weekend like the Audis are having right now, as long as they can do the full year, they can drop those results. It's bizarre, the characteristics of this Paul Ricard circuit. Just a massive, great car park of tarmac in the south of France, and yet the ideal fastest lap around here is to absolutely muller all of the curves, which of course the touring cars love to do, and these curves are absolutely nothing to a touring car, even as low as the cars are running today. And those dips hard as Jack Young jumps on the anchors into the chicane. Hyundai is now spreading out just a little bit. Banani ahead of Langeveld. As Jimmy Claret once again starts to put a bit of pressure on Felice Jelmini, and this is where these Hankook tyres will start to go off for these drivers. Best laps around here, well, Felice Jelmini, a 2:13.7 in this particular race. We're now in the 14s, so they haven't dropped off too badly, but we still do have a couple of laps to get to the flag. This is where I think the experience and the shorter wheelbase, of course, of the Peugeots will help. Claret diving to the inside of the final corner. It was never going to be on, but at least it slightly distracts Felice. Over the line to complete lap 7. 3.8 seconds is the gap between Claret and Jelmini, with Jimmy Claret just 0.4 of a second back. That's the battle to watch out for. Banani's 4.5 back, and he's dropped Langeveld by 2.5 seconds. It's a lonely life for Banani, Langeveld, and Young. That is how the gap for second has fluctuated between these two. Claret able to get his head down, but once he gets too close, you do lose a little bit of aerodynamics on the front end of these cars, even though they're not, single-seaters or highly aero-dependent GT3 cars. They do have that front splitter, and it does do a bit at really high speeds, like Senior. So if you get yourself under the rear wing of another car, and then you've got to go into Senior in 5th gear, you are going to feel it. You are going to feel a lack of front-end grip, and then you're just going to understeer wide. Jack Young still left to right to left, as though he's skiing down a downhill ski piece, trying to shake off Mikhail Ashkina. Ashkina looks as though he's fast enough, doesn't he? But just don't think that Cupra has quite got the legs in terms of slipstream. And really, Jack is making that a proper slalom course down the style straight, isn't he? I don't think it's doing much, because Ashkina is still able to predict exactly where he's going. He's not being too erratic about it, because that would draw the attention of our stewards. As Jakim Galash still with that little bit of damage on the front left corner of the car. Oh, and Ashkina has got through. He's found a way through past Jack Young. Was there need for contact, or was he able to do it cleanly? There is a little bit of damage to Ashkina's left front, but I think that was from earlier on, wasn't it? So Ashkina's gone to the outside line. Around the outside, all the way around the outside, and then claim the inside line, and didn't really claim the apex of the corner, did he? Slightly understeered into Jack Young, but that's kissing. That's definitely not proper contact, as Van Muller would say. Now there was a mistake. Banani was well off the road in the background as Ashkina goes very, very sideways into turn 1, and Banani's dropping like a stone. 15th, 16th, 17th position for our one-time championship protagonist, or championship leader, I should say. And I wonder whether Banani has picked up a puncture. We've got Poussier also in pit lane as well. And has Banani asked too much of that left front tyre? We'll find out in a second, because he'll go back out onto circuit, having changed that tyre, if it is a tyre. Meanwhile, Jack Young actually can't keep up with Ashkina, can he? Now that Ashkina's gone past, he is dropping the Brit. And yes, look at that. Just the lightest of views of a very floppy left front tyre. And the left front has been asking far too much. I did say earlier on that Banani holding that tighter line was going to ask too much of the Hankook, but nobody knows how much these Hankooks can take. And now that's a real worry from Sebastian Loeb Racing on the other Hyundai Elantras that are out there. Jelmany in second, Langeveld in fourth. And obviously Tauflik already retired, so I reckon Banani's actually going to park that. I don't think he's even going to bother going out. There's points down to 15th position. Borkovic actually would pick up a point, and here comes Jack Young back down the inside of Mikhail Ashkina. Great move from the Honda to get back ahead. Fighting stuff from the Brit. And I think Ashkina's cut tyres have absolutely gone. He was sideways into turn 1 and into turn 4. Ashkina's not the kind of driver to make too many errors, but he might be picking up a massive vibration as the Hankooks say no more, and it might actually be a right front. Is that just a camera view? No, it was just a camera view, but he's certainly losing pace. Coronel up to 9th. Issue with Poussier, not a tyre, something under the bonnets. Wow, action aplenty. We're on lap 10, and there is our leader. Teddy Claret getting to the front of the field, staying out of trouble, and absolute masterclass. He's been lapping at the same kind of pace as his teammate Jimmy. Oh, look how clumsy Felice Jelmany looks now, with the tyres absolutely screaming no. The pace has dropped massively from all of our contenders. I'll just keep an eye to make sure nobody else ends up dropping like a stone on that leaderboard on the final lap. Jimmy Claret getting closer and closer to Felice Jelmini, but he's not going to be quite close enough unless an issue befalls this Elantra. Jelmini's going to have to be so careful through the last couple of turns. And just look at the understeer. Really feels like he's driving on a wet tyre. Right, Matto Homola, Martin Rieber and Joachim Galasch, and yeah, that might be cutting the track, Martin. Don't know how that ended up, whether he gave the position back. No, he has actually gained a position from that. So our stewards will be looking at that, and they'll be slapping wrists and handing out fines and the like. Can I hear screaming tyres through senior? The front tyres. I'm going to have to go down and take some pictures of these tyres, because I really think that they're going to be on their last legs. And I think it's supposed to be hotter tomorrow. We're going to be right in the middle of the day for our second race, and it's going to be such a challenge for our drivers, but providing great entertainment for us. Claret, though, from Calmar, in the centre of Paris, or just on the outside of Paris, a nice bit of Paris, our TV exec would say. It's been a perfect drive from lights to flag, and it is the first victory of Teddy Claret's 2021 season. He takes the checkered flag by a healthy margin over Felice Jelmini, who takes his first podium for TCR Europe. And in the end, Jimmy Claret picks up third spot, just a second and a half down, so he really took it easy on that last lap. Still a great battle going on at the back of the field. Plenty of action. Look at this. Big queue of cars. And it is going to be Martin Rieber who is going to finish ahead of Matto Homola and Joachim Galasch, teammates, and then Klim Gavrilov and Dusan Borkovic. Well, they had Tom Coronel ahead of that. Coronel actually dropped down to 10th position, so he made some kind of an error on that last lap. But there is the man that managed it the best. I think the Peugeots really looked well, didn't they, on their tyres throughout that 10-lap race. I think many a driver struggling behind. The last lap, for instance, for Tom Coronel, it was a 2:19.3. So, yeah, Coronel was 5 seconds slower than he really should have been. I think the tyre went pop somewhere on that last lap. Either that or he decided to take the scenic route. But that does mean he drops points, sadly. Points down to 15th position. And he had 17 finishes. But no complaints from Teddy Claret. He takes the victory by 4 seconds over Felice Jelmini. And then Jimmy Claret makes it a Peugeot 1-3 on the podium. Langeveld in 4th position. Jack Young, best of the Hondas, in 5th. Great result ahead of Mikael Ashkener. Great fighting between those two. Girolami had a quiet one. Davidovsky in 8th. Leonov up to 9th by the end. Coronel on that last lap dropping to 10th. And then Rieber, not sure he's going to hold on to 11th position ahead of Homola, Galasch, Gavrilov and Dusan Borkovic with the final point. Also finishing was Nicolas Bert and Gilles Colombani. And then our retirements. Benny Bedani with a puncture, Sylvain Poussier with issues under the bonnet, Isidro Caes pulled over at turn 1, and Sami Taufluik with, we think, contact with Niels Langeveld at the second turn, retired after just, well, basically one sector. Well, they did put on a nice, frenetic show for us here at Paul Ricard. When was the last time we saw a Claret on the podium? They did have some good results. They've always been very, very strong here at Paul Ricard. We were here at Le Castellet for the resumption of TCR Europe last year. And Teddy Claret got himself a 3rd position in race 2. But actually, the last time we saw Teddy Claret on the podium was back in 2019, I think. Of course, the performant Peugeot driver was Julien Brichet and Aurélien Comte. They were the guys that picked up the podiums and the wins in Peugeots gone by. I don't know, this might even be Teddy's first victory in TCR Europe. I'm having to scroll back quite far to see where he stood on the top step back in the day, perhaps. Oh, yeah. Celebrations are plenty with a little bit of Ricard in the Castellet Sport awning this evening, I think, especially with a 1-3. And Jimmy Castellet didn't have a particularly strong qualifying, so he'll start on row 2 tomorrow. Remember, we flipped the top 10, so expect other brother to do a pretty good job tomorrow as well. Castellet Sport applauding Teddy and Jimmy. Way to tell them apart. Jimmy has a bun on his head, in his hair, and Teddy does not. Castellet Sport running 4 cars here. One of the busiest teams, them and Sebastian Loeb Racing. With Poussier retiring, I'm afraid, and Colombani in 17th spot. Sebastian Loeb Racing, of course, also a French team, but based up in Strasbourg. So whilst you could say it's their home country race, they're quite far away from Paul Ricard themselves. An open face helmet, keeping Teddy a little bit cooler than brother Jimmy, who's got his full face on, and he goes straight over to the brother. And brothers unite and hug, first and third, with Felice Jalmany, his first podium because it's his first season in TCR Europe. He did do 1 race, I think, last year, and just popped in for a guest appearance. But there we go. Happy days for Castellet Sport, who didn't have very happy times in Slovakia at all, but they are much, much happier today. And they should be continuing to be happy tomorrow, because there's absolutely no reason why the Peugeots can't do that again. A couple of good first laps, settle in and not ask too much of those Hankook tyres, because those longer wheelbase cars, the Elantra and the Audi, certainly suffered come the end of the race.
It's difficult to keep the same, the pace of the Peugeot. They are so fast, in low corners we are struggling a little bit fast. Very good car. Thank you very much.
Felice saying it was just a bit too hard to keep the pace with the Peugeots. Let's get down to Mark James then, who has Teddy Castellet, your winner.
Teddy, very many congratulations. Winner at home here. How do you feel?
I'm very happy. I'm really happy because, as I told after qualifying, it was a hard weekend in Slovakia, so I'm really happy to be here in France to win. It's my first win in TCR Europe, so I'm happy. I'm with my brother on the podium. What can I dream?
You mentioned Slovakia, which was a dreadful weekend for you. It seems like it's a different car here.
Yeah, it's not a different car, it's the same car, but we improve a little bit on some points, and that's it. We have to learn from our mistake. That's what we do, so I'm really happy of the result. It's the result of all the team, of Peugeot also, so I'm really happy.
We saw you congratulating Jimmy. Let me bring your brother in. We could see how happy you are. Jimmy, many congratulations. Did you expect 3rd place?
I can't imagine before the race to finish 3rd, because I did only the 7th time, you know. I make a mistake in the 3rd sector on the qualifying, and I take a good start, and I was P3 at the end of the first lap, and I tried to make the pressure on Jalmany, but he did a very solid race, and I'm so happy to share a podium with my little brother, and so I can't wait to be tomorrow.
Now, bearing in mind where you start the race tomorrow, could we see a Castellet winning race 2 as well?
I hope. We'll go for it, like everyone.
Very many congratulations, both of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Happy days. I love the fact that they really share the pleasure with each other. We saw that in qualifying as well. Absolute straight into the embrace, and love racing with each other, and ultimately will love standing on the podium. I think this is the first podium for either Castellet, well, not the first podium, but the first win for either Castellet brother. They've had a couple of podiums back in the past. Of course, we do have other categories, like the diamond category, for instance, and I think Viktor Davidovsky has taken our diamond. The junior category, Jack Young will have won that. And the rookie category, we only have Gallas finishing. So Gallas will win the rookies. Gallas, sorry, not Callas. Callas retired, so Gallas will take the rookies. Junior, as I say, Jack Young, and Diamond, which is for over 40s that don't race in the World Championship, is Victor Davidowski. Poussier retired, and Colombani was at the tail of the field. And Reba, well, I think Reba's going to get himself a penalty. Here are the highlights then, and it wasn't a very good start from Mehdi Benani, but a solid start from the Peugeot of Teddy Claret, and just enough defence not to cause a crash, but to hold on to the lead through turn 1. Felice Yelmany trying his luck, but unfortunately the circuit went right. There was a bit of contact further back. Oh gosh, someone got very, very crossed up, and ultimately the loser out of that was Sami Taufik, the Moroccan, retiring on the spot. Ashkenaz got a good start, but didn't really have the pace versus the Elantras that just seemed to be really, really strong in a straight line. That was the retirement of Isidro Callas. Brutal Fish with some head scratching to do on that car. Fantastic battle between Young and Ashkenaz. Firm, but fair. And ultimately, it went to Jack Young, who was able to get back past on the last lap and get himself ahead of the Spaniard Works Cupra driver. Teddy Claret beat Felice Yelmany and Jimmy Claret in third. Right, so we'll get the podium up and running then. Here are our drivers.
First call up to the podium, the driver who finished in third place.
And we will have the best of, I can't remember if it's a Diamond, Junior or Rookie, but one of those guys will be up on the podium with our top 3. So Jimmy Claret jumps on the podium for third position, grabs his trophy and his bottle of Pommery, of course. Very, very important. There'll be a few of those open down at Claret Sport in a few moments' time. We don't go racing until midday tomorrow, so plenty of time to celebrate. That's the wonderful thing about the TCR Europe paddock, is the Pommery doth flow. Felice Yelmany getting his first taste of standing on a podium. And then Teddy Claret will stand on the top step. His first victory in TCR Europe, and therefore the French national anthem rings out over Paul Ricard. Oh dear, the trophies are catching wind. Oh, we've just got to get Joachim Gallas onto the podium as the winner of our rookie category. Helped, of course, by his much more experienced teammate, Matto Hommela. Yannick Motorsport running those two, and Hommela's been really quite frustrated. But there is our podium, and here is the national anthem.
Congratulations to our...
And there's actually quite a few supporters here for Team Claret and also for Sebastian Loeb Racing. We've got a few guests in the paddock today for TCR Europe, which is really, really nice to see. New people, well, people generally, rather than simply just the paddock. People enjoying TCR Europe for the first time, enjoying the hospitality that we're able to provide. And Sebastian Loeb Racing giving them paddock tours and also the chance to sit in the car and have a look at what these guys have to contend with. The new Hyundai Elantra, yet to be seen on the world stage, because of course they haven't actually started their championship yet, but already on the podium 3 times in our TCR Europe season. And it's also taken victory in the endurance championship that happens at the Nordschleife. There is a TCR category there, and basically, I think Hyundai Motorsport as a whole have been running it as kind of a semi-works car. So there are the points following this race. Ashkenar still holds on to the championship because, of course, Benani retires. Somehow, Tom Coronel moves up into third place in the championship, even though he only finished down in 10th position. Jelmini just a point off now, but it's a huge advantage Mikael Ashkenar has developed for himself because Benani retires right at the end of that one and doesn't pick up any points. That bodes well, actually, because we know that Ashkenar will have to miss Zandvoort, and I think he's missing something later on in the season as well. So he will drop 2 scores, but he might have to also do a 0-0. And so all these points will be very, very useful if he wants to win the championship like he did back in 2018. Mehdi Benani was our champion last year, and there are plenty of people in the paddock that would like to take that off of him. And we turn our attention firstly to a little bit of chill time. The cars will go into Parc Fermé, so the mechanics won't be able to do anything to any of the cars that finish the race. Those that had issues will not go into Parc Fermé or be scrutineered, and therefore the teams can jump straight onto those cars and fix them. Hyundai with Sami Taufluik's car, we didn't actually find out exactly what happened to Sami. Ran a little bit wide at turn 2, and that was it. It was kind of gone. Let's go down to Mark James, who's got Jelmini with Mark James.
Felice, we've spoken to the 2 Claire brothers. We need to speak to you. That was a terrific race. At one point, I thought Jimmy had just about got you.
Oh, well, it was very difficult because in the beginning of the race I lost some time. But in the end I was trying to push harder and harder, but the guy in front of me was so fast, and also the guy behind of me. So yeah, massive race. Thanks to Sebastian Loeb Racing and Hyundai, because they gave me a very great car today. So happy.
Now we've already seen the fact that the new Elantra is quick already. Mehdi obviously winning in Slovakia Ring. Neil's quick also. You've shown that it's not just 1 or 2 drivers. Your team has got 4 potential race winners.
Oh yes, I think we are speaking about one of the best teams in Europe in touring car racing, so that's clear. And also the car is very good. Hyundai guys did a very good job. The car has a very good potential, and yeah, we show that we can be fast. So I'm happy for the team, as I said before, so very good.
Okay, let's look ahead briefly to tomorrow. Another 10 laps around lunchtime tomorrow. You're going to be in the middle of the pack. What are you looking forward to?
To be honest, I don't know. I just want to try to score points, and yeah, I don't want to put on myself too much pressure because to stay in the middle of the field is very difficult every time. I try to don't destroy too much the tires in the first laps, but we'll see.
Congratulations again. See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, I think there'll be quite a lot of work done by Sebastian Loeb Racing just to look at how they can get less pressure through those front tyres, less demand, because Benani's tyre just let go, and I would say that Jelmini's car was not far off either. It certainly looked very clumsy on those last 2 laps, and lots of understeer. So one of the most professional teams out there, new actually to TCR Europe. This is their first season. But I think the drivers will get together, the mechanics and engineers will take a look at what they can do, both with the camber of the front end, but also pressures and also driving style. And I think the one thing that Mehdi Benani will look back on, and I know many of the drivers will go onto YouTube and watch this race, and look at that line going through those last couple of corners, holding the tighter line, covered less distance, faster lap time, and was able to pass people. But ultimately, did it put too much demand through that tyre, and therefore that's why it ended up failing just 1 lap before the end. Either way, Benani still sits second in the championship, a long way off Ashkenar, and Coronel will be very happy, I think, to be up to third, despite the car, well, it carries an extra 100 kilos over the Honda. That's basically me and a bit. Although actually these days it's about me, because I've got a bit lardy in my old age. So hopefully they'll be shedding some weight for our next race at Zandvoort. He'll be looking forward to that because it's his home race, and we'll have lots of fun and parties in Zandvoort. But for tomorrow, let's focus on that. Race 2 from Paul Ricard, lunchtime tomorrow. Please make sure you join us. it promises to be as frenetic and fun as we've just seen now. Until then, see you tomorrow.